we feel frustrated, we feel invisible, we feel misunderstood. I think I was somebody who just felt like I was misunderstood, and I would then go, so I'd have a conversation, and because of my filter, I'm a misunderstood person. I would go away and chew over the conversation and think, I hope they didn't think I meant this, or I hope they didn't, or what did they mean by that? Or what, and over analyzing it because I feel misunderstood. And that's me. It says the greatest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Yeah.
Communication takes talking and listening. So like being able to make steps and knowing that you're putting some action in that could get a different result stops you feeling stuck. If you think it's everybody else's fault not listening to you and you're not doing anything wrong, it's just that people are horrible to you and you're not listened to, then you're waiting for somebody else to fix it. And nobody's going to, no one's going to go, oh, they don't feel heard. No. I'm going to invite them into a conversation, It's
so that reminds me, I took this on my thumbnail. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. You can't change.
So when we don't feel listened to, like we go back to the quote, it's so important to have people in our life that we feel truly heard by. When we don't feel that we have that, we feel frustrated, we feel invisible, we feel misunderstood. I think I was somebody who just felt like I was misunderstood, and I would then go, so I'd have a conversation, and because of my filter, I'm a misunderstood person. I would go away and chew over the conversation and think, I hope they didn't think I meant this, or I hope they didn't, or what did they mean by that? Or what, and over analyzing it because I feel misunderstood. And that's me. It's not necessarily that person is misunderstanding me. It's my view of the world that I'm someone who gets misunderstood a lot. And then you go and you chew over it and you do catastrophizing around it, and then you get in a spiral and it can get worse, can't it?
Yeah, that comes back to that rejection and self-worth again. You know what I mean? If we're low in self-worth, if we're not confident enough in ourselves, we can overanalyze the conversation, as you said, and afterwards we're like, oh, I should have said this, or I should have said this, or I should have said, and it's just like, oh my God. Whereas if you're high in your self-worth and you take that step back and communicate in a calm and centered space, you don't need to analyze what you said because you said it from a heart-centered space. So then it's not to do with you, and it's everything to do with their ability to understand it.
Yeah. So I love this quote for my next point. It says, the greatest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Yeah.
Communication takes talking and listening. So like we were saying before, if people are not in the right place or not actively listening to you, then communication hasn't really taken place, has it? You can noises coming out of your mouth, but it's not hitting their ears because they've got other things going on. But also, are we talking to the right people? And I think this happens a lot in schools. I think if we have a grievance or we're upset about something, we tend to go and moan with our co-workers about the issue and not to the people who can help you problem solve fixing the issue, because we perceive there'll be some pushback or we're frightened of conflict. So if we're frightened of conflict, we're not going to have the conversations with the right people. So you can talk all you want to the wrong people, nothing's going to change. And then even though we feel like we've expressed ourselves, because we've expressed ourselves to the wrong people, it didn't get to the people that needed to hear it, And I think that happens a lot in schools. I think people tend to grumble. What we need to remember is if we're grumbling about things, we're not trying to fix the problem.
No, and that's the thing. If you overly talk about something that's annoying you, you're actually attracting more of that into your life, and you're not resolving the issue at all. And it's the same in any kind of work environment. We're afraid to speak our truth because we're like, oh my god, I'm gonna get fired, or my job's not secure. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, moaning about the problem is going to exaggerate the problem, and it's, as you said, you're not going to the right people. So you have to go to the right people, and instead of moaning about it, ask for a resolution.
Yeah, yeah. And and also I think we can choose when you're in places of work or whatever, there will be procedures to follow, so just catching your principal and having having it out with them might not be you might not have followed the correct procedure. So then they might think, well, I'm they're having a bad day, give them a wide berth, but they didn't follow the correct procedure. If they really got a problem, they would have done this. And I'm not saying everybody should start grievances whenever they got a small problem, but it might be that you're supposed to speak to your line manager first, before going to the head. Or once again, you're just grumbling to the wrong people and not getting the word out to the right person. So it is, if there's a problem in a workplace, but make yourself aware of what the procedure is if you've got a problem.
Yeah, like I noticed that when I was a supervisor, before I was a supervisor, I would have been the one that was quiet. And this happens with Irish people an awful lot. We do nothing, and we complain all the time, but we don't know that we have rights, and we don't actually take the actions to go to HR. When I was a supervisor, I got to see from the inside, and I noticed with workers, they'd be so fearful of their job, they'd say to other workers that I'd be friends with. And then my friend would come to me about the other person's problem, because the other person would be too scared to actually voice it. And then I'd be able to help that way. But, I just saw on such a wide scale how many people weren't fighting for their rights because they didn't know they had any. And, I've seen this in so many jobs, especially at the factories that I worked in. It was like we'd be treated like shit. I struggle, I have an injury, and I won't say anything because I think I'm going to get fired. And in actual fact, you've got more rights than you think, and if you just actually go by the right procedure, you'll actually get more benefits than you are doing by hiding in that corner.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And if we're communicating with people that isn't in a workplace and we don't feel heard, once again, it could be how we're communicating with them, and try a good thing if you're going to say something to somebody. So it might be like your partner or children or a family member, is connecting with them first. So if you've got something difficult or something, even if it's not difficult but they're not going to like it, if you're asking them to step up a bit, that you expect them to do the washing up a bit more, or you don't like them coming back late from work, or they're not doing their chores, before going straight in for the kill and having that conversation, connecting with them on some level first just takes the barrier down. If you go straight in for the, like, I'm not happy about this, instantly their back is up. And so you're not going to get a flow of conversation. So you want to be able to get it to a comfortable place where you feel like you are a team. If you feel like a team, then you will problem solve. If you feel like opponents, you will fight, So it's making that connection first before you have the conversation about something that you're perhaps not happy about or that you need more help with.
That's it. It's owning your side as well. Like we spoke about this already. Like own your part. Like tell your partner, I'm feeling triggered by this. I know it's my trigger. I know it's something I need to heal. But how can we change this together? It might be that person's behavior, but what can we both do to change this? Because it's obviously two-sided at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and something I want to say about workplaces as well is collectively, sometimes we might feel like as staff we're not heard, but sometimes those people that don't feel heard are the ones that don't get involved in the conversations, so we might have a staff meeting about, I don't know, looking at marking or something, and they'll be the ones that don't speak when we're trying to sort it out, so it's that self-awareness. It's like, has there been opportunities for me to to speak about this, to have my voice heard? Have I filled in staff surveys? Have I been involved when discussions have been going on? Because sometimes we choose to ignore things that, you know, that there are opportunities. We're choosing to ignore them. And well, we're probably not even choosing to ignore them. The truth is that our brain is filtering them out. It's like, oh, a staff survey, I'm not listened to. That's not for me. And it might not even be in your conscious mind. It's just like, no one listens to me.
Yeah,
So
it's that lack of awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's self-awareness is really important, because if you are choosing, if you look at it like this, if you feel like you are speaking to the right people, and you feel like you are speaking in the right way and using the right words, and you're still not being heard, then why is that? You know, there's got to be, is it that for example, if you're asserting a boundary, is it that we say one thing and then we act another way? You know, that's confusing for people. So sometimes our message isn't always just in words, it's in our behavior. So like I was saying last week, if you say, right, that's it, I'm not covering other people's playground duties, and then somebody asks you and you're like, well, they didn't listen to me, but you say yes, then you're feeding that problem. Sometimes people, you know, might have forgotten you said that, and you need to say, oh, actually, I'm not doing that anymore because I've got this to do. So it's when you've communicated a boundary, it is really important that you hold them firm, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And that's it. You know, you have to. It's that ownership of your side of the problem as well. You know what I mean? Like, when you set a boundary, you have to stop the behavior. You have to stop yourself from allowing that behavior to happen, as well as that person not doing that behavior. So it is a two-sided thing. Again, like you have to own your part. You have to take responsibility for what you can do to change the situation as well. And that's so important. You know, you can communicate the boundary all you want, but if you don't put it into place, they're never going to respect that, or you're never going to respect yourself for it.
Yeah, and you've always got your feet at the end of the day. Maybe not with your kids. You can't just walk out on your kids, but generally in life, you've always got your feet, you know. You can always, because there will be people that will take advantage. There will be people that will hear you and not care. That's the difference, you know. Some people will hear you and not care. They will not care what you think or want. And so that's a problem, and that needs to be dealt with a different way. But generally in life, it could just be that you're communicating not in the best way. Yeah. So it's looking at yourself and being really honest with yourself and being compassionate to yourself, because sometimes when we're having communication problems, we want to just blame the other person. In actual fact, communication is a two-way thing. And you have to be able to own your part. And often, you know, when we say, you know, what are you doing wrong? When somebody's got a problem, they don't want to feel responsible for it. And so when coaches say, you know, to have a look at yourself, or we're talking about having a look at yourself, people might be quite triggered about that. It's just like when I say with well-being, you know, we can't have be complaining about this and that and the other. It's like, what can I change? What can I do to make my well-being better? And I think people find that very triggering, because it's like, it's not my fault, it's someone else's fault. It's not my fault, it's Ofsted's fault. It's not my fault, it's workload's fault. You know, it's not me, it's the head. It's the system, it's that person. And it feels comfortable in some ways not taking responsibility for any part in anything, but it's very disempowering. And so if you are willing and open to the possibility that you could have done something better, and even if it's tiny compared to how somebody else has behaved, it is very empowering to change that tiny thing about you. It really can change.
Yeah. Like I look back on my life, and I remember being in that victim mentality. I remember saying, woe me, and why is life happening? Why is everything happening to me? Why is everything going wrong? You know, and obviously I was in a low vibration energy. I was in anxiety and depression, so I didn't know my way out. So I'm not blaming myself for the things that happened. But I realized when I started to feel how much control I really did have. You know, you can control who you have in your life, what you have in your life. You can say no to the wrong things. You know, you can say yes to the right things.
Mm-hmm.
It's about choosing yourself. Your life is in your control and your control alone. So if you're miserable, if you're doing things every day that are not in alignment with your soul, you actually have the power to change that. No one else has. You do. And it's taking that responsibility to realize that you can change anything in your life right now if you stop playing in that victim mentality and going and blaming everything outside of you.
Yeah, and that's a really important point that you made there. When we're saying taking responsibility for your part, that is in no way saying blaming yourself. Blaming is a very different thing. Taking responsibility is going, what in this situation can I change so that I'm going to get a better outcome? And that is empowering. That doesn't mean that you're going to get the perfect outcome, but being able to make steps and knowing that you're putting some action in that could get a different result stops you feeling stuck. If you think it's everybody else's fault not listening to you and you're not doing anything wrong, it's just that people are horrible to you and you're not listened to, then you're waiting for somebody else to fix it. And nobody's going to, you know, no one's going to go, oh, they don't feel heard. I'm going to invite them into a conversation, you know? It's
So that reminds me, I took this on my thumbnail. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. You know, you can't change your life unless you actually change something.
Yeah. And, you know, I say that people feel comfortable blaming external things. It is a comfortable place because it means you don't have to be looking at yourself. You can pretend you're this perfect victim with everything else going on. And that feels comfortable because you don't have to look at yourself. But actually, it's a really uncomfortable place to be because you're completely powerless. You're miserable. You feel completely disempowered. You probably have anxiety, depression. You have difficulty in your relationships, or you might be choosing the wrong relationships. You know, so it's initially a difficult thing to switch, isn't it? It's like when you had that book, isn't it? You were given a book, and which one was it? It was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, wasn't it? And sometimes we're not ready to hear that we should take responsibility for changing things.
Oh, that really triggered me. It took me 10 years to, like, I read a couple of pages of it and I was so triggered. This was when I was like 19 or 20. And I didn't throw away the book, but I threw it inside. I was like, that's bullshit. And I didn't read it again for 10 years later. And it's just like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And you know, it's actually quite transformative. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, it triggered me because I wasn't ready to change. You know, and that's it. It is a flip of the switch, really, because I mentioned this before. I was in an 8-year narcissistic relationship, and 6 years into it, I went through trauma and had to go to counselling. And it was only the counsellor pointed out to me that I was in a toxic relationship. And I was like, I resigned myself to the fact that it was going to be an emotionally abusive relationship, that we were never going to sleep together again, and I'd fallen out of love with him, and it was a dead end relationship, and I was just going to put up with it. And 2 weeks after, I said that to my counsellor, and she felt so sorry for me because she thought this poor girl is stuck now. And 2 weeks later, I went, I'm fucking done. I'm out of here. And that was a flip of the switch from going, I have no power. I'm codependent here. I have no, like, but I wasn't saying I was codependent. I was saying, I don't know any different. I've lived with this man for 7 years. I forgot I lived on my own when I was 19. You know what I mean? And I forgot I was responsible. You know, and I was like so codependent that I was like, I have to stay in this environment for the rest of my life because I know no different. And literally 2 weeks later, I was like, I'm taking my power back and I'm out of here. Do you know, I'm like, I don't even know how to flip the switch for me, but it can happen that quickly.
Yeah. And what I really find interesting about that story, and I think this happens quite a lot actually, that sometimes when we're not ready to hear something or process something, someone can set the ball rolling in our head, and actually we go away and we're like, no, it's not like that. It's not like that at all. But behind the scenes, it's going tick, 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 tick. And eventually, click. It's like, actually, maybe they were right. And
Yeah.
just in the moment, we weren't ready to hear it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like I didn't even realize that connection there, but yeah, she was pointing things out to me, and I wasn't ready to hear them. And then that's what flipped the switch,
Yeah.
was that I finally processed what she said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I suppose that's a good point to actually give somebody time to process what you say. So it might, the fact that they're not ready to, that's really, yeah, sorry, I don't know the way you get little epiphanies to do these videos. But yeah, it's like when that person isn't ready to understand you, it doesn't mean they'll never be ready. Maybe you just need to give them time to process it. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that was a little epiphany.
Yeah, that was an aha moment there. It was really helpful for my situation. So yay, thanks for helping me with that one.
Yeah, which that's true, because
Yeah.
just like sometimes we're not ready to hear something. It's just like, you know, if you ask for something or you speak your truth and then somebody might be scowling or grumpy for a couple of days, then let them,
Yeah.
you know, it's okay for them to feel how they feel about what you've said. It definitely doesn't mean they haven't heard you. That's what, you know, if you get a negative reaction,
Yeah.
you know they heard you, and it doesn't mean that things won't change. It just means that like they're not very happy about that. They've heard what you said and they need some time to process that so that they can problem solve with you and come to a resolution. Yeah. So making sure that we give people time to process the things that we've said to them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really helpful.
So let's see.